Theory and Practice of Silviculture, lecture number 17. The earlier lecture was about the irregular shelterwood system. So this lecture we are going to study about the Indian Irregular Shelterwood System. So already we are on the silviculture system as a high forest system, already been explained. In the high forest system, we were having the system of concentrated regeneration, where we have covered about the clear felling system, and we are on the shelterwood system. Then we have the system of diffuse regeneration. This is a more complex system and more skill is required. Here we will be studying out of selection system, the group selection system, and the last one is a accessory system. So in this lecture, we are going to study about the Indian Irregular Shelterwood System. Now what is Indian Irregular Shelterwood System? The Indian Irregular Shelterwood System that is defined as a silviculture system in which the crop to be regenerated is open up irregularly and the resultant crop is uneven age. No doubt, when you open up irregularly, the resultant crop will be uneven age. But let's understand it nicely. We can see this is a forest where we have a different type of diameter, large diameter, small trees. Nearby you can see the maximum all type of ages are being present. Here the Trevor, this forester, has described it as a modification of the uniform system. He says that the Indian silviculture system is a modification of uniform system. So already we have studied about uniform system, where large quantity of advanced growth of various ages and size in this Indian Irregular Shelterwood System, large quantity of advanced growth of various age and size, and the trees even up to 40 centimeter diameter, that is called DBH, 40 centimeter of diameter are retained. They are not cut down, they are retained. So just to retaining this big diameter of 40 centimeter diameter, it becomes somewhere uneven age. And Glover, another forester, has described it as a Punjab shelterwood system. So Glover has described this system as a Punjab shelterwood in case of Deodar forest. So we have to go back to study about the uniform shelterwood system, because as I told you, this is a compromise between the uniform shelterwood system and the selection system. So let's understand which of the uniform system. Already we have studied that uniformly we will cut down the tree species in all the compartment, like seeding felling, secondary felling, final felling, and spacing is also uniform on those uniform system. But here the case is not like that. As I told you that it is irregular. Felling is irregular, the resultant crop becomes uneven age. So as the uniform, doing this one, the uniform character of the crop is lost, because we retain 40 centimeter dia, and this is a 40 centimeter dia, we retain, we don't cut this one, we don't cut this species, this 40 centimeter, we'll retain this 40 centimeter. So how it is a uniform system? It follows some of the uniform system, but retaining this 40 centimeter dia, the crop becomes irregular. The crop becomes irregular in nature, and just because of this, it necessitates the separate treatment for this system. Because we are felling what? We are felling only the exploitable, and those with 40 centimeter dia, we are retaining this. Why we are retaining this? As the uniform of the character is lost by retaining this 40 centimeter dia, we can see this is from far, if you see, this is 40 centimeter dia. So such type of trees, when we retain, we don't cut down. So we can see here the GBH of the tree is around 126 centimeter. So it is nearly 40 centimeter DBH or 126 centimeter GBH, which is retained. Up to 126 centimeter GBH is retained. It becomes uneven age. So this is, we can cut down. Here we have harvested, but this 40 centimeter, we are not harvesting it. We are retaining this one. And thus the crop regeneration open up irregularly. You can see here we have fell down, 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 here we have fell down. These are the crops which is already been an exploitable diameter, and we can go for the revenue of this tree species. And this is the tree species which we will fell in coming next felling. But here what I want to tell that this harvested exploited diameter, we fell it, but retaining what? 40 centimeter dia. This is a 40 centimeter dia, 40 centimeter dia, 40 centimeter dia. We are retaining. These are the poles. We no need, when we are retaining 40 centimeter diameter, why will fell this pole? Pole will also be retained. So you can see some uneven edges there. Due to retention of the groups of well-grown poles and immature trees up to 40 centimeter dia, it becomes somewhere irregular. It becomes somewhere irregular. So this is dia of 40 centimeter. It is retained here. This is a pole stage. This is a pole stage, and the harvesting one we have already felled from here. So you can see this is how different dia is been there, which results that this is an uneven edge forest. As we can see here, there is a large quantity of advanced growth present here. There are saplings, seedlings and poles, and even the trees up to 40 centimeter dBH or 126 centimeter GBH is retained as a future crop. So hence this makes the crop, this makes the stand very irregular. This is one case. The another case is it also permits the adoption of selection system. Earlier I told you, retaining the 40 centimeter dia, it looks pattern like it follows the pattern of a uniform system, but retaining 40 centimeter dia, it has lost the uniform system. On the other hand, now it also permits the adoption of selection felling. Now what do you mean by selection felling? Selection felling, we fell only the trees which we feel that now it is mature enough, we can cut down. That is called selection. We select it. So in the same compartment there is a plain area and there is a hill and slopes also. That compartment will have two types of areas. So in the plain areas we are having some pattern of uniform system, but not true uniform system, because we are retaining 40 centimeter dia. But on the slopes like this, on the slopes, when we go on the slopes, so here what we do, we can see we are doing selection felling here. So we fell where it is safe, because erosion may happen. So we are felling here these trees, selection felling of exploitable diameter we have felled here. Here also we are feeling safe that if you fell this tree, erosion will not happen. Here also we are felling this selection type. Here also we are felling, but we are retaining this big tree still now, because we have fear that erosion will happen here. So we are not felling here. It's like a selection forest now. And then also retaining all 40 centimeter dia, this 40 centimeter dia, 40 centimeter dia, 40 centimeter dia. We are retaining this. Up to 40 centimeter dia we are retaining here. So poles and immature trees of 40 centimeter dia is been retained here. That is in the steepy or slopy areas. Just because of this, it becomes a selection pattern of selection felling. So it permits again the adoption of selection felling on the steep, rugged portion of compartment being worked under uniform system. It is not a true uniform system. It follows the pattern of uniform system and the selection system. So you can see this is how on the steep areas both are there. Plain area is there, steep area is there. In a plain area will follow the pattern of uniform system, but retaining 40 centimeter dia and below that one, it doesn't becomes a true uniform system. On the other hand, on the slopes we go for selection fellings, and we don't fell where we fear of erosion. So it is a type of selection felling in the topography. We can see here the felling has been done, and just because of the felling in this steep terrain, the erosion has happened here, and it is very difficult to control this erosion. That's why in the steepy terrains it is advisable to carry the selective fellings, and just because of this selective felling the crop becomes very irregular. So both topographies are there in that area. So that is Indian Irregular Shelterwood System is a compromise between a uniform system and a selection system. So we compromise both the system and mix it. So that is called the Indian Irregular Shelterwood System. Now let's understand very much more clearly by pattern of felling. So Indian Irregular Shelterwood System is defined as a silviculture system in which the crop to be regenerated is open up irregularly and the resultant crop is uneven age. This is the definition, and is a compromise between the liberal compromise between the uniform system and the selection system. Now let's see the pattern of felling. We'll discuss in the pattern of felling, number one, the irregular nature of the crop being regenerated. Number two, we'll study about the difficulty in obtaining regeneration at the will. third we'll be discussing about the steepness of the terrains, and the last fourth one will discuss about the danger of loss of soil fertility. So these are the 4 points to be remembered while doing pattern of felling. Now the first one, the irregular nature of the crop being regenerated. As I already explained that, now what we are going to do, we are going to retain the well grown poles and immature trees up to 40 centimeter dia. Retaining this one will make the crop very uneven age, so the resulting in irregular opening, because irregular we are opening, irregular we are cutting down. Retaining this 40 centimeter and the poles and immature crops, it becomes some irregular in nature. So the retention of well grown poles and immature trees up to 40 centimeter dia makes the result crop irregular. Now what it makes, it retaining this 40 centimeter dia facilitates the completion of regeneration work. So we don't have to go for more. Already we know that in the coming years this 40 centimeter dia will go for a mature tree. So why we'll sacrifice these trees? No need to sacrifice this tree. We'll retain these trees so that in coming time we'll be having a big grown tree. Only those trees which are competing or which are having a big bole than above 40 centimeter dia, we'll cut those trees and the gap will be there. So those immature tree and 40 centimeter dia tree will be growing in a good way, in a very good growth. So we can harvest in the coming next cycle. So retaining this 40 centimeter dia and the poles will make the regeneration work complete. So coming time we can get these trees in a big size and big diameter, and then we can keep on felling, retaining this 40 centimeter diameter and other pole and immature crop. But doing this, the entire forest becomes irregular. So that is what it results in, the irregular opening of the canopy. Number two is difficulty. Number 2 point which I want to discuss is the difficulty in obtaining the regeneration at will. So as per your will, you cannot get that regeneration. You have to wait for the nature. Now the removal of wood cannot proceed at the uniform rate. You are keep on cutting down and not waiting for the regeneration to come. It is not as per the will. So we have to wait. We have to see whether what we are felling, regeneration is following or not. If regeneration is not coming after felling, we have to stop it. So that's why it becomes irregular. So that we have a difficulty in obtaining the regeneration of the will. Why it is just because the nature of the crop. Is the nature of the crop. So what is there in this area, we can see this area where here regeneration is already there. So we can fell down. So we can fell down those mature trees where regeneration is there. In this area, if we after thinning few of the trees of exploitable diameter, regeneration is not coming up, so we cannot proceed further. We have to wait for the regeneration to come. So that's why the pattern of felling here is difficulty in obtaining the regeneration at will. So you can see this, the entire area we have done felling, but no regeneration is coming. So that is what the difficulty it has. We can see here that there is very less regeneration, as that is very difficult to obtain the regeneration at our will. So it is very difficult to further proceed on felling of the overwood to obtain the regeneration. So that's why there is an irregularity of the crop. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time for here to regenerate, and we have to wait for the regeneration. Then only we can further proceed for felling of the exploitable diameter or mature crops. So as the progress of the development is irregular, means the regeneration is irregular, the felling on the overwood is also irregular. So that is what. Number 3 point we are going to discuss in the pattern of felling is steepness of the terrain. So as I told you, in the same compartment, you may have a plain area and you may have a steep area. In the plain area, we follow some of the pattern, that pattern only of uniform, and in the steep area, we follow the pattern of selection system. But just because of the steepness of the terrain, you can see there's a steepness of the terrain. We are maintaining this 40 centimeter dia, 40 centimeter dia, and below that one. And then steepness of the terrain, here, this is risky. If you fell down, it will be very risky. So if you fell down, what is the risk? Number 1, it will give lot of damage when it fall down. Second, the thing is this, that is not a very big issue, but the issue is the erosion. So when the terrain is steep, it is not advisable to carry out the heavy felling under the uniform system, or in such cases, the felling have to be a selection type. We have to select and fell. If we don't do and we keep on felling without doing selection, pattern of selection felling, then there will be lot of erosion will come up. in steepy terrains, it is advisable to carry the selective fallings, just because to avoid the soil erosions. We can see here the fallings has been done, and just because of this one we can see the soil erosion has been happened, and just to avoid this soil erosion it is advisable to carry the selective fallings. And just because of the selective fallings the crop becomes very irregular. So as I told you, there is a compromise between the uniform system and the selection system. So we have to follow here selection system of that pattern, because it's only selection felling we will do, otherwise it is very dangerous. The felling have to be very, very cautious, otherwise there will be erosion. So we do felling only when we feel that there will be no erosion, otherwise this will cause lot of erosion, and that is one of the biggest challenge we have to follow. The fourth one, we are going to discuss about the danger of loss of soil fertility. Now, what do you mean by danger of loss of soil fertility? This we will study in the coming lectures under the Indian Irregular Shelterwood System under the tropical rainforest in Arunachal Pradesh and many places also there where rain is more. So where we have a tropical rainforest, this is a tropical rainforest. Lot of rains are there. So tropical rainforest will have a soil which is having very fertile soil. Just because of the decomposition here, soil will be very rich enough, and it takes a lot of years to build up. But as we fell very like a uniform system, we fell and then we open up the forest, then what will happen? Leaching will happen. All the nutrients will leach down below the approach of the roots of the trees. So that will be a big loss. So in this condition, in the tropical rainforest, we have the richest soil. As I told you, heavy uniform felling cannot be done because it will leach the nutrients under heavy rainfall and will not be available to the trees. So what we have to do in such conditions, we have to fell very cautiously, keeping those pole immature trees and that one, so that crown cover is there, and then we fell it in a very light thinning so that we can save the nutrients not to be leached down. So we will fell in such a way that the soil is been protected under those canopy cover and the nutrients doesn't leach down. So we can see this is one of the condition where we have done felling and then all the nutrients has been washed away or leached away. So that is what. So there is an example of the Indian Irregular Shelterwood System. One example is the Deodar forest in hilly areas in Uttarakhand, we can say in that, and we can also say it is available in the Himachal Pradesh area. So the usual prescription is to remove the all overwood. Here generally what we do, as already in my previous lecture in uniform system, we have studied about the uniform system. Somewhere we practice where we keep 45 to 50 trees per hectare depending the aspect and soil. But as I told you that it has been suggested that we have to keep forest type like a 40 centimeter dia. So we need to keep the cover to save the soil. That's why in Deodar forest we practice and we try to keep those trees which are immature up to 40 centimeter dia or pole trees, and then we try to fell keeping the crown intact so that we follow the more protection for not only soil, for the regeneration to come, because Deodar regeneration is a shade bearer. So in the beginning it requires shade, later on it requires light. So there is a lot of things we have to go for. Due to this type of felling, it becomes irregular, Indian Irregular Shelterwood System. Now this is another example of Shoria robusta in Haldwani, in Ramnagar, in Dehradun. So this is an example as the regeneration which cannot be obtained at a will. And then, as already in the earlier, the foresters have suggested that to follow the uniform system in Shoria robusta. But for many years, the regeneration didn't came. So that system could fail. The regeneration could fail under the uniform Shelterwood system. So later on, it has been now suggested to work under the irregular Shelterwood system. So under Indian Irregular Shelterwood System, Shoria robusta regeneration come very profusely and it came very nicely. So we are going to study about the regeneration of Shoria robusta in my coming lectures under Indian Irregular Shelterwood System. So under this we are going to study the regeneration of Shoria robusta in this system, how it works, and this topic is very important as a part of Indian Forest Service examination also. So keep watching the upcoming lecture for Indian Irregular Shelterwood System or the regeneration of Shorea robusta. Thank you very much.